Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So in this video I'm going to be ranking every skill in RuneScape 3 from worst to best. Now before we start, I really would like to mention that this video is opinion based. I did get a bit of feedback from some people in my Discord server, and I will be ranking these skills based on a grind and use score, and I'll be taking the average of the two. So a higher score means less of a grind, and a higher score for use means that the skill is more useful. And if you guys disagree with any of my rankings, feel free to comment your thoughts down below. I'm sure some of you, or a lot of you, will probably disagree, as it is a little bit controversial. Anyway, starting off with the first skill, the worst skill in RuneScape, in my opinion, is Hunter. And Hunter, I rated it a 2 for use and a 3 for grind. The use, it really doesn't have a use besides making money, so that is one of the cons, as you see there. But Hunter can be a profitable skill, and it gets a lot faster once you get to level 77 Hunter because of Grenwalls. Although it is slow up until 77 Hunter, and it is a very click intensive skill the whole way through unless you are using protein traps, which is actually what I used to get to 99 just because I thought this skill was way too click intensive. Moving on to the second worst skill is woodcutting. And surprisingly, woodcutting was actually my first 99, although it is at number 2 on this list. So woodcutting is really AFK, and it can be somewhat profitable. Those are really all the pros it has. The cons are it is a really slow skill to train, and it is boring for a lot of players. To me, I don't really find woodcutting boring. It's really AFK, and I really don't mind that, so that is why I really enjoyed it, and it is my first 99. Although a lot of people do tend to hate the skill because of how slow it is, which is why it is at number 2. Now moving on to the third worst skill, which is Runecrafting. And so the pros about the skill is it is a profitable skill, but the cons are it's really slow to train, and it's a boring skill. It's extremely click intensive as well. And for the use I put 3, and the grind I put 2, just because I think it's a really awful grind, just since it's so click intensive. However, with the Soul Altar, that does make it a little bit more AFK, but you do need 90 rune crafting first, which is still pretty difficult to get. And talking to a lot of max players, they often say that rune crafting is one of their last 99s, and it is the same with me. I have 3 skills left, and rune crafting is one of them. Next is agility. So agility, for obvious reasons, is a pretty awful skill. I rated grind at 2 because it is really slow to train and very click intensive, and also I find extremely boring, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys find this as well. The pros for this is you get agility shortcuts, which are really useful, and Silverhawk feathers, of course, which is why I didn't put grind at 1, just because Silverhawk feathers, because I know I got a few million XP from the Silverhawk feathers myself. Anyway, I put use at a 4 and grind at 2. So next is fishing, and the pros for fishing is it is a profitable skill. It's not super profitable, but it is profitable, and that it is semi-AFK as well. So the fishing spots do tend to move every few minutes, so this is why it is only semi-AFK. The cons are it is slow to train, and it doesn't really have a use outside of an Iron Man, so I put the use at a 3 and grind at a 3. Now it is worth noting that at 93 fishing you can actually fish at the waterfall fishing in Prifddinas, and this is really AFK. The fishing spot does not move, so that makes fishing a lot better, a lot more AFK as well. So next is cooking, and the pros of cooking is that it is a profitable skill. That is somewhat, for some fish it is, and it is semi-AFK as well. As you can see, it takes about 50 seconds to cook all your fish, so you do have that bit of AFK time. And then the cons are it is a really boring skill to train. Also, the XP isn't super high, but it isn't super low as well, so it's kind of mediocre, which is why the grind is at a 5. And then the use is at a 3. Just like fishing, there isn't really a use to it outside of an Iron Man. So the next skill is Thieving, and Thieving I put a 3 use and a 6 grind. Now the 6 grind, it is pretty AFK and a faster skill, especially with safe cracking, so that really helps this method. It is somewhat profitable as well, like not too much. I did a lot of dwarf traders to get to 99. I probably did the last 5 or 6 million XP, and you know, I made a few mil, but it did take a long time. So yeah, it is profitable, but you're not really gonna, it's not really like a money making method, so there is that to it. And then the cons, there isn't really a use to it. There's no point in thieving, which is why I kind of waited for thieving to be one of my last skills to actually max. Now the next skill is Divination, and Divination I put a 6 use and a 4 grind. The pros for Divination are the divine locations. So you can make 1 divine location per day, and it allows you to gain a lot of XP, especially on lower skills, which is what it's best at. So you can make things like herb patches, rocks, box traps. You can get fishing XP as well. So all these are pretty good for getting some XP in other skills. Divination is also semi-AFK, but I do find it is really boring to train, which is why I only train with the core hunting friends chat if I do actually train the skill. And so the next skill is construction. So construction has a few pros to it. It is a pretty fast 99, and you also make your player-owned house, which has a few pretty useful rooms like the Gilded Altar. But it does have some cons. It is really click intensive to train and expensive to train, but the speed of getting the 99 does make up for it. So I put the use at a 5 and the grind at a 5. Next is crafting. And the pros of crafting is that it is a faster skill, although it is pretty expensive to train. So I put the grind at a 6 and the use at a 5. There isn't really too much to say about crafting. It doesn't really have too many things going for it. It is kind of fast and expensive. Now there are these harmonic harps, which you can see on screen. This is a nice AFK way to train crafting, although it's really slow, like 50k XP per hour. But I did do this a lot because I prefer the AFK methods, so that kind of helps out crafting a little bit, make it a little bit better skill, I think. And next is Fletching. So Fletching is a really fast skill to train, but it is pretty expensive to actually get really great XP per hour. So the broad arrowheads, making the broad arrows, that is probably one of the best methods to train Fletching, and it is what I did to 99. It's pretty expensive, but you can get like 500 or 600k per hour doing it, which is why I put the grind at a 7. Now the use is only a 4 simply because there isn't really a great use for it. You can make arrows. It is useful for backcriminal bolts, but that is really the only use for Fletching. And the next skill is Firemaking. So the pros to Firemaking are that it is AFK to train, and also incense burners. These really boosted Firemaking. Before that update, I would say the use would be a lot lower, but now with the incense burners, I put the use at an 8, because it has so many uses for PvP or gathering skills, so that really does help Firemaking out a lot. The cons are it is a pretty boring skill to train, and the XP isn't super high, which is why I put the grind at a 5. Next is mining. So mining is a really profitable skill, and it is also really AFK now. So the best part about mining are that the rocks do not deplete anymore. making it extremely AFK. You can also have your Grace of the Elves necklace, which teleports the ores straight to your bank. So mining is actually like insanely AFK right now. The only cons are that it does have a slower XP per hour rate, but since it is super AFK, that kind of does make up for this. I put the use at a 5 and the grind at a 4, which I do think is a reasonable score for mining. Now, this would be a little bit higher for an Iron Man, but on a main account, it isn't really that important. Now, the next skill is smithing, and smithing is a semi-AFK skill, and it can be really fast to 99. You can actually get up to 2 mil per hour while smithing using a specific method. Now, smithing is pretty expensive, and it does have a use now. You can get masterwork armor. There are also a bunch of other cool armors that are pretty cool to make. It is way more useful for Iron Men, but it still has some use for main accounts, which is why I put the use at a 7 and the grind at a 7. So next is farming, and farming is a profitable skill and really AFK with the player-owned farm. Now the cons are there aren't really many uses besides money making, but anyway, I did put the use at a 7 and the grind at an 8, simply because the player-owned farm. I will be making a player-owned farm money-making guide in the future because player-owned farms actually make a lot of money and it is extremely AFK. Like, you'll need to check it every few days, which is why this method is so high on this list. And next is Slayer. And Slayer is actually one of my favorite skills, if not my favorite. And that is because the pros. It's a really profitable skill and it is extremely useful. And it also trains combat as well, which is what I really love about Slayer. I simply just like combat in RuneScape and AFK methods, and that pretty much just describes Slayer. It's kind of AFK, it's combat, it's profitable, it's great. Now the only cons are it is a slow 99. You do get higher XP per hour at higher levels, but in the mid levels it is a bit of a grind, which is the only downside about Slayer. Now the use is a 9, and I put the grind at a 6. The next skill is Dungeoneering. So the pros to Dungeoneering are that it is really useful, and it's a faster 99 compared to some other skills. The cons are it's really click intensive. You actually have to pay full attention while you're doing it, unless you're leeching, of course. But it is pretty boring, I find. It's kind of repetitive, just going through dungeons. But the uses, they're pretty useful. There's some pretty awesome resource dungeons. They're even coming up with some more, just like the Abyssal Demon one near the Slayer Tower, which is why the use is at 9. And I put the grind at a 7. It isn't too hard to get to 99, but, you know, it is, in my opinion, it's a pretty boring skill, which is why I put it a little bit lower than 8 or 9. Now, the next skill is Prayer. And the pros to Prayer, it's a fast 99, and of course you can get curses, which just help for PvM. They're kind of necessary for a lot of high-end PvM, especially bossing, which is what makes the use so important for Prayer. So I did put the use at a 9 and the grind at a 7. It is a fast 99. It is pretty expensive as well. You do have to buy all the bones, but you know, it's not too bad. You will make all the money back when you start doing PvM with your curses. And the next skill is Herblore. So the pros to Herblore, pretty much just one, it's overloads. And if you don't know what overloads are, they are a potion that boosts your combat stats plus 16. You can get supreme overloads, which boost them 18. And the best part about this is that they are a static boost, so they don't go down over time, they just go down when the potion expires. And this makes it insane for PvM, pretty much necessary for a lot of bosses. Now, it does require 96 Herblore to actually obtain or make the overloads. And another potion that is pretty useful are the super fires. So if you're killing dragons, especially Queen Black Dragon, super fires are really useful. And you need 85 Herblore for these. So that is another use for Herblore. And now looking at the combat skills, because they are the only ones left. So we have Constitution. I gave it a use, a 10. You know, health is always great. That's a pro, more HP. The grind is a 9 simply because it is the slowest combat skill. You get the least amount of XP into Constitution as opposed to, you know, range, attack, strength, defense, magic. But it is AFK, it is a combat skill, so that is why it is so useful and great. And the next skill is going to be Summoning. And so Summoning is a really fast 99 and it is extremely useful. So things like Beast of Burdens, they are useful for so many different things, especially PvM, but they can also be used for skills or even training. As you can see, I'm making some Steel Titan scrolls, and I'm able to hold extra Steel Titan pouches in my Beast of Burden so that I can make more scrolls at a time. So summoning is really useful for stuff like that. So this is why I put a use at a 10. Now the grind is only a 9 simply because it is really expensive, but you also need to obtain all of those charms, and charms can be a bit of a grind to actually obtain, which is why I put it down at a 9. The XP per hour you can get from summoning can be insane, as you can easily get over 1 mil per hour while training summoning. The next skill is Invention, and Invention is one of the best skills in the game. It is really AFK to train and super fast to train as well. You also get perks which make the skill just amazing. So you can get perks for PvM, like Aftershock, Biting, things like that. But you can also get perks for your tools like Honing or Furnace that will essentially boost your XP per hour while skilling. And then the combat perks will obviously boost your DPS, or you could even boost your armor if you want while you're killing something. So that is really why Invention is so amazing. It is really easy to train, probably the easiest skill to train in RuneScape. So obviously give it a 10 use and a 10 grind. Now we're only down to the combat skills left, so I decided to put melee, all the melee skills into this next little part. So melee, it is profitable and it's a fast 99, as all combat skills are, but melee is the worst combat type as DPS, so that is why it is worse than the range and worse than magic, but 10 use and 10 grind. Now, combat can be better than range and magic in certain situations, but overall, if you're looking to maximize DPS, melee is probably the worst one. And at number 2 is ranged, which is my favorite combat style. So obviously it is really great. It is actually the best combat style for DPS if you are using the Backcriminal bolts. So really there are no cons to this. I'm going to give it a 10 use and a 10 grind. You know, it's pretty obvious it is the best combat style. But I did have to go with magic for number 1. And really magic only has one thing over ranged, which is the spells. So magic is a combat skill, but it is also a skilling skill as well. With all the spells like High Alch and stuff like that, it just makes magic extremely useful and definitely the best skill in RuneScape 3. So you can train it extremely fast. It's a great combat style. It's the second best combat style if you're looking at DPS. But the spells like High Alch just put the skill over the top and give it the number 1 spot. Anyway guys, that is it for this video, and hit the thumbs up button if you guys did enjoy the video. Also subscribe for more RuneScape 3 content, and if you guys have any opinions that contradict mine, feel free to comment down below. I would like to see your guys' opinions and thoughts on my ranking. Anyway, I really hope I see you guys in the next one, and until then, peace.